Hey, it's Alexander here. I wanted to make a video covering my new sculpting workflow in Blender. I've moved back from 3D Coat to Blender, and so I've added a Sculpt Pie menu to QuickDeform, and I'll be discussing the features, how I use it, along with QuickCurve and QuickShape. This is the model that I'll be making. We'll start with the tools and move into the time-lapse. Overall, I really enjoy this new process, so I'm excited to share it. After installing QuickDeform, you can open the Preferences menu. There's going to be a few settings that you should be mindful of. At the bottom here, you're going to have the folder location for your alphas. So later on in the Pie menu, you can select the alpha. It's going to look inside that folder. If you go into the key map, you can just search for QuickDeform, and there's going to be a Sculpt Pie menu. You can set that hotkey to whatever you would like. I prefer the right mouse. And now by pressing right mouse, I'm going to turn on the screencast. Okay. So pressing right mouse, you can see I jump into the Sculpt Pie menu. So now at the bottom right there, those are the alphas. It's looking in that folder that we selected. And now let's start with the resolution. So I'm going to turn on the wireframe so we can see what's going on. If you press Ctrl-Shift-R, you get that visualizer, and it automatically remeshes right away. And then you have the voxel up res, the down res. You can increment in 10, 30, or 50%. And I think this really encapsulates the QuickTools logic. It's that type of usability that you actually want when sculpting. You know, you don't want to sit there and try to guess some tiny number, make some like 0.0025 to 0.0027. Like, you just want to go up 10%, 20%, and be done with it. In the Pie menu, I've also included settings for multi-res and Dynamesh. I tend to just only use voxelization though. I'll start pretty high and then maybe just add a little bit more when I need details, and that's been my approach so far. So when it comes to sculpting itself, I like the clay tubes brush, and I tend to go along the form and then across the form. Kind of, I'm thinking about it like cross hatching. So I make a ton of little strokes, as you can see here, and then I use the trim to smooth it out. And I say smooth, but I mean like I don't actually use the smooth brush at all. I try not to use it. So I'm smoothing it via this trim brush. And by the way, these brushes kind of have some custom settings, which you can change, of course, but they're not exactly the default ones. Especially the trim, I've kind of tried to get it to something that I really like. And so it's just a process of this back and forth, clay, build up, and then trim it back down. Here I'm showing the layer. Another custom setting, which is cool. It's good for hard surface to have it set up this way. And this is another brush that's good for hard surface. It's called Pinch Custom. So it doesn't really work as well on just like sharpening a single edge like a crease, but this is really nice for building up this kind of form. And then again here I'm showing how I smooth it out, quote unquote, with the clay brush as opposed to the smooth, because I just want to stay away from that digital lumpiness that happens. Here's another example with the Pinch Custom. So you can build these kind of forms up just really, really quickly. Could use some trim here. I just kind of did it sloppily, but you get the point. So another cool feature we have is going to be called Quick Extract. So first you have to make a mask, then you can click that, and you can see it just goes right in. You move your mouse, confirm it, and it's all done for you. If you do it in the default Blender way, it's very annoying. It goes back into object mode. You have to apply the modifier, and it just kind of goes on and on. So now I want to show a few basic approaches to hair. With QuickCurve, you can draw curves very easily with all kinds of controls and settings. If you turn on Draw on Surface, you can end up making your own kind of hair ribbons. So here's an example. So this is a really great base. If you convert this to geometry, you can sculpt on it, inflate it, move it around. And of course, QuickCurve has different profiles, so you can use a square. Has this cool setting called Twist, and this will just do like a twisted hair ribbon, which is really kind of beautiful, really awesome. And then the last thing that I want to show here in a second is using a custom profile. So you just want to make sure that you're oriented to the world properly, and then once you draw it, you press J, it'll select that as a custom profile. So now you can see that you're drawing it with this hair ribbon. Just make sure that Draw on Surface is on, And now once you draw with the hair ribbon, you have this, and it's pretty much the perfect ideal workflow for hair in my opinion. So jumping into the time lapse now, I'm just going to start with the head using that same workflow that I talked about earlier. I'm using QuickShape here to block out the nose and the ears. I think there's really no great way to get that nose out and you get that like wedge trapezoidal shape out there, so just doing it with QuickShape is really nice. Then just easy remesh. Same with the ears because they need to be rotated. So this is a base that I'm comfortable with. Remesh, and I just start going. So the way that I sculpt like this with this cross-hatching technique, it does look quite ugly at the start, I feel like, but once I start adding in the trim and then going back over it, I think it starts to come together. So, you know, just have to be patient with it. You know, just adding all the like lines of the face, all of the structure underneath, doing my best, practicing anatomy. Trying to get the lips in. So this is all the clay tubes brush, which is just the clay buildup. I'm sometimes the names, like, because I use ZBrush for a long time, then I use 3D Coat. I don't really know what the blender names are, and I get them all mixed up. But it doesn't matter. So I try not to sculpt any lower eyelids anymore. I'm on a strike from lower eyelids because I bought this Carpeau book and I saw a bunch of sketches, or like, you know, rough sculptures that he did that didn't have eyelids on the bottom, and it just was like the shadow from the top eyelid kind of made it look like there's an eyelid, and I really like that look, so I've been on a crusade to not do any lower eyelids, and I think it kind of works. And you can just slow this down if you want on YouTube for some reason, but you know, I really didn't mean this to be like an actual sculpting tutorial, but more just the tools themselves. And so here you can see I switched to the trim, and it really starts to come together once you get a little trim in, instead of smoothing, which would make it so lumpy. I was able to just define all the planes of the face really easily, and then I can go back in, clay brush, clay buildup, add some more form, and it has an interesting look. You know, it's not super traditional, but it's not too digital. I'm trying to find something kind of in the middle, but you know, still keep some of the traditional because it's good. It prevents you from going too deep into details. Like, you know, I'm not thinking about pores, I'm not doing any of that stuff, but I'm just trying to find some kind of middle ground between using the good traditional stuff and the good traditional stuff that kind of helps you save some time and has a really cool look to it. Here I use the clay brush to smooth some stuff out, sometimes the trim, sometimes building form up again with the clay build up. See there, I don't really have a lower eyelid, but it kind of looks like an eye. So here I jump into QuickCurve and I start making the hair. So I'm just trying to find out the clumps, kind of doing a rough sketch, and then I'm starting to draw these clumps. So as you guys know, I'm sure with hair, it's always about just kind of having a rhythm to it, having large clumps, you're not drawing individual hair ever, or at least not until the very late detail stage. So I'm just trying to think of that, trying to have some flow to it, trying to have, big, medium, small, trying to have different sized clumps. And now I'm going to do the quick extract thing so I can have a little bit of a base for the hair. Remeshed it all together, and now I'm in this kind of phase 2, which is to add volume. So phase 1 is the quick curve, do the block out. Phase 2, add volume. So I want to find like which hair clumps are beneath, which ones are on top. It really helps to have that quick curve base mesh to go off of and just sculpt on top of it. So this works, if it's short hair like this, if it's long hair like I was showing at the start. Long hair is kind of pretty easy to do. This one's a little bit more time consuming. I think the back is like a little too kind of Starry Night, like I should have simplified it, but just practice. So then I'm trying to add some hard edges to it by using the clay and the trim. Because I didn't use a custom profile, I just used the round brush, so it needed a little edge to it. Just finishing up. Then I'm going to jump into stage 3 here very soon. Just making some adjustments. Okay, so stage 3 is trying to get some of the line work in, get some of the smaller details, take some of these clumps and maybe separate them into smaller clumps, smaller chunks. And then I'm going to switch to the rake brush in a bit. Always want to break up that hairline, it's super critical. I think I remeshed it together and then I brought out the rake brush. So now you can see I'm adding this kind of line work, applying a little bit of the hair, working on the edge where it meets. Yeah, it's starting to come together. This rake brush really helped a lot, just to add a little bit of detail and a little bit in a few places. Okay, almost done here with the hair. A few adjustments. Okay, there it is. Alright, now I'm starting the body, so I'm doing a blockout in QuickCurve. Just like a super simple stick figure in the pose, just thinking about gesture. It's a challenging way to start, but it is a lot of fun. It's good practice, and it's kind of fast in terms of, like, if I was doing a background character, then it's kind of done at this point, and I could just have it in a scene. So if I keep working on it, then I can take it to like a more finalized level like I have here. So it's kind of interesting. I use the inflate brush just to add volume to the stick figure. And it's fast, so if at any point I don't like the gesture, I can just easily change it. There's no messing around with rigs or anything like that. So I'm just doing the clay tubes brush to build up some form here, cross hatching, getting those primitive shapes in. And then I just trim it, and you see it gets this nice kind of simplified look. And then back to the clay tubes, and I just go back and forth kind of the whole time. Now I'm starting on the hand, just using QuickShape to block out the basic forms. Such a nice way to start. If this was a different type of project, I could just leave it like this. And if it's not like a project like this, then it's a great base to sculpt on. You know, I feel like sculpting from a sphere just never really enjoyed that process too much. So just having something that I draw that's like already kind of close, and then I can just refine it, that just feels more natural to me. So just again, clay buildup, trying to get some basic anatomy in, have a few references up, some like Bridgman drawings, some BAMS drawings. So with this hand, really I didn't use the smooth at all, which is always my goal. It's just clay brush to smooth stuff out and trim. Yeah, like right here, I'm using the trim. Almost done here. Okay, so that was the shield. I just used the revolve tool in QuickCurve, and as always, you know, everything's linked in the description. You can check out my other videos. I go over QuickCurve in great detail, but that was just a nice way to do this shield, I thought. And then back to QuickCurve, I'm drawing this little dragon logo on it. Adding a little cut line with QuickShape. And now for the sword, again, I just drew it. Obviously I could have used QuickShape for the whole thing to try and make it smooth, but I wanted it to look a little rough so it kind of fits in with the rest of the sculpture. So that's why I did it like this, and then I just used the trim brush to try to flatten things out, but not too much. You know, I still wanted a little bit of that handmade feel. Just remeshing everything together using the lattice. Lattice is a great tool. I use it a lot. Because in QuickDeform, it'll, you know, align to the object. It sets everything up for you. Very easy to use. Now I'm just doing the final detail on the sword. And there we go. So I brought all the separate parts into one scene, and now I'm just gonna fix things up, put them all into place, remesh everything together. There were a few challenges from splitting things up this way, but it was good practice. Just had to fix the back a little bit of the guy. And some of the posing. But all in all, it was great practice to try to sculpt, like, you know, no symmetry in the pose. It's very different from what I would typically do with just, you know, sculpting from front on and then posing it. And I thought that there were some benefits, definitely. But it was hard. And now I just want to try and bring everything together. Just rotate all around the mesh, work on kind of all of the parts at once. So this is where I fixed the back, because I was actually originally thinking to not even have the head, and I think the neck just got a little crazy, so I had to redo that part. But now it looks like the head is kind of belongs on the body now. So remeshing everything together and then working on the parts where everything connects, the neck. Okay, so now I'm using the trim just overall. I feel like the trim really brings everything together, and yeah, again, it just has an interesting look to it that I've really enjoyed. It even leaves a few artifacts there, like you can see on the chest. It kind of looks like marble or traditional clay. It's interesting. Just refining. Was thinking about hitting it all with a rake, but decided not to do that and just went back with the clay. And then back to trimming and, you know, back and forth. There I'm using the clay brush to smooth some stuff out. Okay, almost wrapping things up here. It's been a kind of a long video. I'm trying to keep these around 30 minutes. But I also wanted to show as much of the process as possible, so. Okay, I think I remeshed everything together now. Some final adjustments. The hair got smoothed out a little bit on accident, so had to go and refine that again. Now I switched to the inflate brush and I'm doing some veins. So I always wanted to do veins on a marble looking sculpture, so I found inflate, turned the strength up to 1, and it looked decent. Especially on the hand here, it looks kind of cool. Thought about doing some head veins, but wasn't feeling it. Alright, that is the final sculpt. Okay, thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, any upcoming videos you'd like to see, what would you like me to cover in QuickTools. I also want to mention we have brand new documentation covering just absolutely everything on my website. I'll leave it in the description. Covers all the tools, certain like pitfalls that everyone falls into, and join the Discord. It's a great place to talk about Blender, talk about QuickTools. I'm offering help basically to anyone that posts in there like nearly 24/7, and then it's a great place to share your art and talk about art. Okay, thank you.